Look at these little earrings, they're like little razor blades. Ooh. Actually, whilst I'm on the topic of birthday swag, might as well mention my new mug. If you can see it there, it says on it, blood spatter is red, luminol shines blue. I watch so many crime shows, they'll never find you. True. Just remember that. Heyo! My name is Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for episode 15 of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. Ooh, not quite sure where that was. Moving on. If you like spooky content and all things UFO, supernatural, true crime, in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you guys every Wednesday and Friday. And yeah, just join us. It'll be fun. We'll have a good time. We'll drink some juice on a Friday, but alcohol on a Wednesday, because we sure need it. But yeah, let's get started. How are all my party people? How are you all doing? It's actually been a really weird week, actually, for true crime in the UK here. And if you're from the UK, you'll probably know this. It's been all over Instagram, all over social media, but there was actually a young woman named Sarah Everard who went missing in London in the Clapham area. She was leaving her friend's house in early March at around 9 p.m. at night when she completely disappeared. It was a 50-minute journey. She was meant to be walking home and she was doing everything right. She was wearing very bright clothes. We're talking like cream beanie, and then she had on this bright green jacket, navy heavily patterned trousers, and then this really beautiful pair of trainers that were like orange and turquoise. So yeah, and she was like walking on the main roads and on her phone to someone the entire time, and she went missing. And sadly, a policeman's actually been arrested with her kidnap and murder. So at this point, it's become quite clear that the human remains that were found in Kent at this man's property and in the surrounding areas was actually that of Sarah's. Now, since then, the 33-year-old from York has been plastered all over everyone's Insta stories, saying things like she was just walking home. And it's kind of come to light after several hateful messages were posted on the missing pages on Facebook, saying things like, well, she shouldn't have been out during lockdown. No, please shut up. And also things like, well, why was she out walking late at night? You should know better. No, you're an idiot. I mean, we've touched on this channel before, and it's something that I've discussed in the Grace Mullane case and cases dealing with sexual assault and consent, and it's one that I will never shut up about because I truly feel this way. Through our whole lives as women, we are educated about safety and about being in charge of our own safety. And I think this is one of those things that we as a society need to sort out. Like, the education needs to start with males. It has to start with males, because why should we be learning how to keep ourselves safe? Should they not be learning about self-control and the treatment of women? I don't know about anyone else, but in high school and primary school even, we were never ever taught about the treatment of women and the fear that women experience at the hands of men and the threat of men. And it's really infuriating. Around Instagram, there's been this hashtag that random idiotic guys have been stealing the spotlight essentially from this horrific crime and using it as a campaign of not all men are like this. We understand that not all men are like that, but in your friendship group, there is probably one guy who believes and what's happening out there is the woman's fault, and that women should dress a certain way and shouldn't walk home at night and should be more careful of their surroundings. These things, yes, 100%, it's good to know your own safety and it's good to keep yourself in check when need be, but also we wouldn't need to be so overly cautious and basically terrified every time we're out alone if men were educated from a young age about consent and about the fact that rejection is a totally normal part of life and that no means no. This control aspect of these kind of attacks is definitely something that starts at home and can be taught at home as well. So definitely it's absolutely tragic, and for anyone writing anything even remotely disparaging towards young Sarah, remember, she's not just a statistic. She has a family. This woman has parents and siblings, I assume. So let's not write anything like she could have prevented this, she was walking home at night. Why don't we start looking back in ourselves and saying, what can we do to make sure that she's the last person this happens to? Because that's really the questions and the things that should be getting said, not disparaging remarks towards someone who is most likely deceased. On the topic of missing persons, how does it kind of start in the case? This is how it always starts, isn't it? It all begins with that one phone call, that missing person report. And obviously in most crimes, sadly, it ends up in a sad ending, remains are found, and the family can have some sort of sad closure as the perpetrator is hopefully then brought to justice. But what happens in the cases where no remains are found and the family are just kept in this stagnant point of the unknown? Do they ever move on? Do they get any closure at the end of the day? And this is equally true in the baffling case of the disappearance of Tyarra Williams. Tiara Williams was born on June 18th, 1996. She was the first child of her mother Danielle and her husband, who she'd been with for 7 years. He actually isn't named in any publications and he's not a massive focus in the children's upbringing, so I won't dive into him too deep. Tiara was then soon followed by her little brother Cannon, and the two were said to be inseparable. Her mother had an amazing relationship with the children, and sadly her father and her mother actually got divorced, and the children were then solely put in the care of Danielle. Danielle was a great dedicated single mum, but Tiara did feel like she had a little bit of responsibility over her brother, as her mum had to work and try and keep the household afloat and the kids fed. Her mum was helped a little bit by Tiara's grandmother Vanessa, and they were said to be equally as close, figuratively and literally, because she lived in the apartment complex right next to them, across the way, in the Stony Brook apartment complex. Growing up, Tiara and Cannon were super close, and they even had their own little language, their mum said. Tiara was overprotective of her little brother, and God help anyone who said anything wrong or looked at him the wrong way. She was said to be like a second mother to her brother, and her mum herself must have passed on a little bit of that overprotective gene, because Danielle herself was a very overbearing mum sometimes. She had to have full access to her young daughter's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything she could get her hands on, anything that she could come into contact with other people on the internet. Her mum wanted the full passwords, her usernames, and she had to add her as a friend so that she could keep tabs on who was writing on her walls and things like that. Now, I think that's kind of a good mum thing to do. I can understand as a teenager, that must have been really annoying. You know, in this day and age, you can't be too careful. In her final year of high school, Tiara actually moved out of her mother's apartment and into her grandmother Vanessa's just across the way. She did say at the time to her family that it was because her grandmother was getting older and she didn't want her to be alone. She felt kind of sad for her grandmother and felt like she could use the company at that time. But some of Tiara's friends said that more likely it was probably to get away from the very watchful eye of her mother Danielle, as she was getting a wee bit older and she wanted a bit of freedom from her. Tiara was always someone who felt really comfortable around children, even as a child. Like I'd said before, she took over that motherly caretaker role and she was a lot wise beyond her years. She loved being around young kids, and this even blossomed into a future career prospect. She decided that she wanted to take college classes at the nearby Guildford Technical Community College, and she took a year out after high school, had her fun, and then in the December of 2015 she decided that she wanted to enroll. Her main focus of study would be early childhood development, as she decided that she wanted to be a teacher or a carer of young children, or even young children with special needs. She was just a natural caregiver, and that's just who she was as a person. Tiara was only not just smart, she was a naturally very beautiful young girl. As you can see, big massive eyes, she had gorgeous lips, and she just had this beautiful kind of stare that our family said was intense even from such a young age. She always had this really burning intensity behind those eyes, as if they knew she was going to be trouble. Because of her beauty and her brains, Tyarra actually attracted like quite a lot of dudes in her life. She was really popular with the fellows around the Stonybrook apartment complex, and she had 3 kind of main boyfriends in her life. Her first proper boyfriend was a man named Trey. Trey was a good little bit older than Tyarra, and he was looking for something a little bit more chilled, a little bit more laid back. He wanted to kind of settle down and start his life, whereas she was all about the drama, all about that intense burning love relationship, and it just wasn't really what he was looking for. He didn't think the two were on the same path, and therefore he ended the relationship with Tyarra, leaving her devastated. Like, this was her big teen heartbreak, and it was said that even if he ever messaged her after the fact, she would drop everything just to be with him again. And guys, we've all been there. We've all been a little bit silly. The second kind of guy who came into Tyarra's life was a man who we can't actually disclose his name because it has never been formally released to the public, and for that reason we will just call him Boyfriend X. So Boyfriend X was the complete opposite of Tyarra's first love. This love was extremely volatile. He was said to be a big bad boy in the area, and that he wasn't really a good influence on Tyarra. Her family really didn't like her hanging about with this guy, especially her grandfather Daryl. He had everything to say about this guy and said that he had no business going out with a girl like Tyarra. They were from 2 completely different walks of life, and their futures were on 2 different paths. The relationship did fizzle out because Tyarra just got fed up of his bad treatment, and she ended the relationship, something he was not too happy about. Boyfriend X would constantly reach out to Tyarra even after the breakup, and even after she met her third and final boyfriend, who was named Aaron. Aaron was 24 years old when Tyarra was about 19, and the two had actually met through his brother because she had worked with his family, and the two had gained kind of a friendship. They did decide to take it into a relationship because they'd been friends for a wee while. They got on really well and thought, why not give it a go? Tyarra's family did say that she wasn't the keenest on him. They'd only been together for about 8 weeks, and he was super into her super fast, and this was something she wasn't that bothered about. She was starting college, starting a new chapter in her life, and she wasn't really feeling him. She was eventually going to tell him, and hopefully they could get back to being friends, but she was trying to work out a way to do this without hurting his feelings. It was also kind of hard for Tyarra to escape him, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but he lived literally right across the road in the same Stonybrook apartments, so she couldn't really avoid him and kind of let it fizzle out on its own because he was always there. And then he became friends with her brother Cannon, so therefore they would hang out separately all the time, and it was just a bit of a messy one to try and get away. On the day of her disappearance, 7th of January 2016, Tyarra had actually enrolled at her local community college. She'd attended her enrollment and got her photograph ID. She was said to be so excited to start this chapter, and she even raced over to her mother's later on that night around 6 p.m. to let her know how her day had gone and what her experience on campus had been. Her mum was really proud of her and really thought this was the start of something amazing in Tyarra's life, and that she'd kind of found her calling with early childhood development. Aaron had then showed up at the house at around 6:30. He'd chilled with Tyarra and Cannon, and then the 3 headed off to Tyarra's grandmother's Vanessa's across the way for some nice home cooked dinner. She actually made her favourite that night, and they were all excited eating dinner. But then at around 8:30 p.m, after seeming a bit distracted and being constantly on her phone, Tyarra abruptly said that she was going to meet a friend and that she was leaving the boys there. Aaron didn't really question her too much on this. She said that she was going to meet a boy named Travis, who was an old childhood friend, but her brother Cannon was sitting right there and he didn't know any Travis. People would go on to say, why did Aaron not question his girlfriend on this at all? I mean, I don't know about you guys, maybe I'm just maybe I'm just a crazy bitch, but if my boyfriend, fiance, said that he was going to go out and meet a girl pal that I had never heard her name, he would not be getting out that door alive or with all of his bits attached. Maybe that's just me, but he said that he trusted her and that's why he never really called her out on it. But many people do speculate why it was never actually mentioned that she was going out to see this random guy, especially that late at night. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Tiara? Shady lady. So the three leave Tiara's grandmother's house at around 8:30 p.m. Aaron and Cannon head in the opposite direction to go to Aaron's house to play some video games whilst they're waiting on her, and she said that she'll be back in around an hour and she'll head over to Aaron's once she's done with this friend. She then heads off, and that is the last time that Aaron ever sees Tiara, to our knowledge. At around 9:30 p.m, Aaron's still sitting up. Karen's now left his apartment and he's waiting on Tiara. She's still not arrived by this point, and he does send her a couple of texts asking her what she's up to and if she's still coming over. When she doesn't respond, he decides that he's getting tired. He's just going to head over to Tiara's grandmother's and go to sleep there, which is a little bit of a clingy boyfriend move, but who am I to judge? He goes over to her grandmother's, allegedly falls asleep at around 9:30, 10 p.m. And then when he wakes up at 7 a.m. in the morning and sees that not only has Tiara not arrived home to her grandmother's, she's still not responded to any of his texts. He does try and give her a call, but the phone goes straight to voicemail. And at this point, he has to leave because he realised he's got an appointment that he's going to be late for if he doesn't get his ass into gear. And when he arrives back to his own apartment at around 10 a.m. later that morning after his appointment, he sees that he's still not heard anything back from Tiara. He is concerned, so he phones Tiara's grandmother Vanessa, waking her up and asking her to check if Tiara's came home, if she's heard from her at all, and things like that. Her grandmother checks Tiara's room and she's not there. Her bed's not been slept in. She tries to call her mobile herself and it just goes straight to voicemail. Yeah. When she checks Tiara's room, she sees that not only has she left her phone charger there, she's actually also left her purse, her keys, and everything inside this handbag that she would really need for a night away. So if she was going to just have a sleepover at friends, she would have taken these items, especially her phone charger, as her family said Tiara's phone was literally glued to her hand like any other normal 19-year-old. At this point, Vanessa's not majorly concerned. She phones Danielle, Tiara's mother, to inform her of this, and Danielle is slightly a bit more kind of bewildered by this than her grandmother, but they do decide to give her a kind of a benefit of the doubt and ask around her friends if anyone's seen her. Not only that, they ask people in the complex if they've heard from her, people that she's friends with. Things do take a different turn when Aaron arrives at Danielle's house to speak with her about Tiara's disappearance, and he mentions the fact that Tiara left them to go and meet someone named Travis, who she claimed was a close old friend. Now Danielle knows for a fact that she don't know no Travis, so she then tries to access Tiara's old deactivated Facebook page and see if there's any answers on that. She manages to actually get into the account, and when she goes into her private messages, she sees a number of messages from boyfriend X. Remember the boyfriend she was with, who was a bit of a bad boy, quite a volatile guy, wouldn't leave her alone? Well, they've been messaging secretly on Facebook. It doesn't really seem like she's always been the one messaging him. It actually seems like quite the opposite. Sometimes she'll message him back, sometimes she won't, but he will always be there to message her. Not only that, he's actually been stopping by Vanessa's house and Danielle's house to meet Tiara, unbeknownst to them, because they thought they hadn't had any contact in months. Because like I said, her grandfather Daryl and her mum were not a fan of this guy. They said they had no business being together or staying in a friendship afterwards because the relationship was so volatile it had ended on bad terms. Police at this point do search and do a door-to-door inquiry of the complex itself, but without any CCTV and no one's kind of talking to police at this point, they are none the wiser on what's happened to this young girl. They don't know where she's gone, so therefore they think the next best bet would be to bring in boyfriend X and ask him if perhaps he's the one that she was lying about meeting that night. They bring him in and he decides to completely lie to police, barefaced lie, and tell them that he hasn't even spoken to Tyarra in months, which police know is a complete fabrication. So police then pull him up and tell him all about the Facebook, that they've got access to it, and they know he has actually been meeting her on the sly. At this point, he totally changes the story and he tells police that in fact he is the elusive Travis and that she did meet him that night, the night she went missing, at around 8:30 p.m. She stayed in his car, they talked about things, and she got out of the car and walked back to her apartment, about a 5-minute walk, at 9:30. So the police then ultimately think that this guy's not reliable, he's totally been lying to us, and then when he was caught in a lie, changed his story. He is the last person to see Tyarra alive. The lead detective on the case, Detective Farrar, a woman from the same area, actually looked into Tyarra's phone records and she sees that there has been some odd activity on it. That Coke's just gone flat. That was upsetting. So the police can't actually kind of tell who she was messaging and what the context of the messages were because they don't physically have Tyarra's phone. However, they can see where her phone last pinged from the final messages she sent, and also at what point in the night the phone was disconnected or the battery died. They determine that the last person that Tyarra was messaging was in fact Travis, boyfriend X, and that her phone was switched off or the battery died at about 8:35 p.m, right after she allegedly got in the car with boyfriend X. So it seems a little bit fishy to police that not only would he lie about this, but also remember that she had actually deactivated her Facebook account after being bombarded with messages from this dude. And then, if that wasn't enough, the minute she gets in her car, she switches her phone off or lets it die? I don't think so. Police do search this man's car thoroughly and they find no sign of foul play. They don't see anything that could lead to the fact that Tyarra was met with some sort of injury in the car, and I'm not sure whether they actually ever searched his home. It doesn't mention that in any of the case files, and this man, because it's still an active investigation, no extra details have been provided about him or his whereabouts that night. If we knew if he had an alibi or not, that might be helpful, but we don't, so we work with what we've got. On the topic of boyfriends, police do actually chat to Aaron, Tyarra's current boyfriend, and Trey, Tyarra's first kind of love that she was proper into, but he was a little bit too mature for her. And they don't really see any sign of foul play with either of these guys either. Trey is devastated at the loss of Tyarra and the fact she's gone missing, and it just seems like he's just really sad for them. Aaron himself is really sad, and he's actually quite offended when he thinks that he's getting put under pressure by the police and Tyarra's family. He does understand now, obviously in hindsight as a grown man, why they had to look at everyone at the time, but he said that he experienced dark depression and even suicidal thoughts during this period. So all round it was just a horrific time for all of her friends and family. Her mum felt extremely guilty because her mum said that she feels that she should have had more of an idea of who Tyarra was talking to, especially when she had access to Tyarra's Facebook account for so long, but she had trusted her daughter and didn't feel the need to check every message, and this is how boyfriend X's messages had slipped through the cracks. Shockingly, 6 weeks after Tyarra's murder, there is another murder involving someone in this crime. Trey, Tyarra's first ever boyfriend, was actually found dead, shot in his apartment, and police were hoping that this would lead to some sort of answer or some sort of resolution to Tyarra's case, but unfortunately the two crimes were completely unconnected, and Trey had actually been killed in an altercation with with his roommate at the time. So it was found that these weren't connected, and it was just a really strange stroke of bad luck. Tiara's family aren't the kind of family to just kind of sit back and allow the police to do their work. The police at this point, after a few weeks of Tiarra being missing, do a full search of the surrounding areas and all of the rivers, culverts, everything like that, all of the streams, just to see if there's anything they can find, even property of Tiarra's, to suggest an area that she maybe went in the direction of. If she was abducted, where could she be? A lot of the places were frozen over and there was no way for them to access it, and with it being so cold outside, this did affect the search a little bit as well. But like I said, her family were determined to not give up on Tiarra, and her grandfather Daryl, he was actually a former bail bondsman, and he's quite like a tough guy. Like, you would answer his questions if he asked you questions. And he actually takes it into his own hands and decides to set up some sort of tip line where people can contact him, and he will go directly to the place of the tip. And this is something that, obviously, with police and limited resources, he's the best person for the job. The detectives also said that there were certain places like strip clubs, drug dens, pimp houses, things like that, that he would gain access to a lot better than a group of policemen going in. So he actually manages to search around the country for his granddaughter. One of the first tips that comes in is from a guy driving a sanitation van, and it's not too far away. It's only about 17 miles away from their hometown, and this man says that he sees a woman who looks very much like Tiarra in a black jacket, pink sweatshirt, and she looks really disorientated. Now, Tiarra was last seen in a black jacket and a pink top, so therefore this is quite an intriguing sighting. And the man says that the woman appears to be very out of sorts, as if she's maybe on drugs. Her grandfather thinks that perhaps someone's maybe keeping her captive and perhaps drugging her, as in a kind of human trafficking case, which, let's be honest, we're talking about Carolina, so you never know. Remember guys, North Carolina, this is a place that does not have human trafficking issues. Brittany Drexel episode, watch it. Another sighting that also came and went was a group of women in a Waffle House in Jessup, Georgia. The women were all at a table with a couple of guys, but they had been going consistently for over a week when one of the waitresses actually noticed that one of the women looked extremely like that of Tiarra. She did notice that the woman who looked like Tiarra never really spoke when they went into the diner, and they would just all be chatting amongst themselves, and this woman would be sitting with her head down as if trying to avoid eye contact or any attention. When they called the tip line, her grandfather actually went all the way out to Jessup and managed to track down the group of people that were staying at a nearby motel, and sadly it was actually a pimp and a group of young women that he had with him. God knows what that was. And sadly the woman who looked like Tiarra did look like her, but she wasn't his granddaughter. Probably, I would say, one of the weirdest sightings, and I still don't quite understand what this girl was thinking. It's a bit of a weird one. In Greensboro, their hometown where she went missing, Tiarra's family friend actually calls the tip line and Tiarra's mother Danielle to say that at the DMV she is sure that she has just seen Tiarra picking up a driver's license and getting into a van with blacked out windows. She says that when she saw the girl in the car park, she got out of her car and was so sure it was Tiarra, started screaming Tiarra's name. But the girl then turned around and said the most weirdest thing you could ever say. She turned around and said, "No, I'm not Tiarra, I'm not who you think I am, but please pray for me," and got into the car and drove off. The family friend wrote down the driver's license plate and phoned her mum to come down to the DMV and get this checked out. And when CCTV was checked with Danielle and the police detective, sadly it was found that this girl was not Tiarra. And yeah, still to this day, who would say that? Like, I know it's not me, but pray for me. Like, what was happening in her life? Danielle is said to be devastated. She really believed this lead because it was a family friend, someone who had physically known Tiarra, and she was just absolutely crushed when yet another lead came back and it wasn't her daughter. She wanted her found safe, and the chances of that happening were getting more and more slim. Her grandfather Daryl even put up £10,000 of his own money if it led to him finding his granddaughter. He said, if anyone can give me the information that gets her in front of me right now, here today, the money is yours. But sadly, no one has ever come forward and led to them finding his granddaughter. We'll get into the theories just now actually, because I kind of want to chat, because there's a few, and I want to know what you guys think. And I know we all say, oh, leave your thoughts in the comments, but I really mean it this time, because I want to know what you guys think. I've got my own theories, but yeah, we'll get into it. So a major theory is that it's Boyfriend X. Boyfriend X was the last one to see her alive. He also said that he hadn't seen her and then backtracked when police found out that he had. So would he have ever come forward if police hadn't accessed her Facebook accounts? Who knows? Not only that, she was also in his car for a matter of minutes before her phone either switched off or died or was destroyed. Yeah, the car was clean, the car had nothing on it, but what if he drove Tyarra to a certain location where he finished out whatever he was planning with her? He was persistent, he was unhappy she was meeting someone new, and he was said that he was very jealous and very toxic in her life. Could this have been enough to make him snap? I'm sure we've seen people snap over less. So yeah, he's kind of like my golden ticket for suspect number one, if I'm honest. Oh my god, and I've not even mentioned it. He's not ever been released to the public. His name's not, but Aaron has, Trey's was, everyone else's was. Why hasn't his name been released? Is it because police are trying to stack up some evidence on him before they get that out there? Another popular theory is Aaron, her current boyfriend. She wasn't really that happy with him. She was planning on breaking up with him. Did he find this out? Or better yet, when he was walking over to her grandmother's house, did he see her getting out of the vehicle of Boyfriend X and realise what she was really up to? So possibility, maybe he just snapped in a jealous rage and took her life. We don't know. He vehemently denies that he had any involvement in her disappearance, and it does seem like it would have been quite a short time frame for him to do that, but you never know, stranger things have happened. Last but definitely not least is what her grandfather Daryl believes to be true, which is the trafficking aspect. And I'm not going to say it didn't happen, obviously, could be a possibility, but literally we're talking about a 5-minute walk from Boyfriend X's car to her complex. Could that have happened? Yes. Is it a bit rare? Probably. She was literally walking within an apartment complex that she had lived her whole life in, and she was really familiar with everyone who lived there and the area. Not only that, why was her phone switched off? And wouldn't she have just called for help had someone tried to abduct her within the complex if she was walking on foot? It's just one of those things. I think it's something that he probably wants to believe because it means that she's still out there, and hopefully she is. Hopefully she's out there alive and well. But after over 5 years of Tyarra being missing, it's just not looking too good. There has been images of Tyarra or similar to the likeness of Tyarra appearing on sex websites and on strip club websites, but whenever these have been investigated by Daryl and the family, they have been proven to not be that of the missing teen. So like all the other avenues, we just don't know. The most popular one, especially on Reddit, everyone's got an opinion on Reddit, but it does seem to be Boyfriend X, and I think myself, I more believe that one. I more believe that theory. Don't get me wrong, do I think Aaron could have easily been walking across the complex and seen her getting out of this guy's car and he was really angry about it? Totally a possibility. But I think lying to the police about meeting her, and then the fact that her phone was switched off after just getting inside the car, and she had a new boyfriend and everyone said that he was more than capable of this kind of volatile behaviour, all arrows are pointing at you, babe. The sad fact of this case is that we are 5 years on and are still no closer to finding this young girl who took Tyarra Williams. So guys, a bit of a heavy one this week, but I hope you liked this week's episode. Give it that big thumbs up on the like button if you did like it. And if you didn't, I don't care. Kidding on, I do care. Please be nice to me. In all seriousness, guys, I really mean it when I say I love hearing your comments every week. It's amazing to just scroll down and see them. And then when I see your little subscriber numbers just going up, it makes me so happy. Seriously, I love you all and I couldn't do this without your support and without you all being super nice and super friendly, so cheers for that. If you're new here, please do subscribe to my channel. I promise I'll be here for you every Wednesday and Friday, and you will find my new personal blogs up very, very soon. So if you like anything to do with weddings, fun, me getting drunk, just fun, then definitely tune into that, because I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and you can just watch me being on a date for 20 minutes. Win-win. But I need to get quite serious with these guys, because I've got some good news and I've got a wee bit of bad news too. The good news is I have finally listened to you all who've been private messaging me on Instagram and writing it in my DMs and Facebook and DM me about the JonBenét Ramsey case. I'm finally covering this case. I have been trying to research it whilst doing my other videos, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not gonna happen. There's like literally so much information on it that I have to take just a wee bit of time off. So I will be missing next week's episode. Please don't be mad at me, that's the bad news. But I promise I will be back better than ever with an amazing episode on the 26th of March, and that will be the JonBenét Ramsey case. I'm going to try and keep it as a one-parter, but if not, I will have it up half and half on the Wednesday for you, instead of our weirdo Wednesday on the 24th, and then on the 26th I'll have part 2 up for you. I'm going to try and condense it, but I just don't want to annoy you with a big 1.5 hour episode and then you don't even want to subscribe at the end of it, because that's not fun for anybody. Whereas if you get a wee Wednesday, a wee Friday, that's quite nice, isn't it? If you feel like you're going to miss me, like I really miss you guys, then please do feel free to follow me, Not Home, on Instagram at Megan True Crime. I also have TikTok if you want to keep up with me. I'll try and do a couple of little true crime quick videos on TikTok in the meantime. It's at megan.truecrime. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode, in case you forget about me and the little holiday that we're having. I'm so excited to get this episode out. I'm absolutely buzzing, and until next time, I will see you all soon. Please remember guys, lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and if you're being shady with an ex, go and get it, but just always tell someone where you're going, honey. See ya!